Good evening. Welcome to last minute tips for before submitting your graduate school application. I'm Jeff Oxendine. I am the founder and CEO of My Health Career Navigator, also of Health Career Connection, and am at UC Berkeley School of Public Health. I'm here today excited to share with you my lessons learned about some tips that you can use to get your graduate school application submitted and on time and to have it be successful. The webinar today is probably going to be a little shorter than we've done in the past. It's going to be about 35 minutes or so. And I'm going to go through some initial slides, and then we'll have time to answer some of your questions. I definitely want this to be something that is of value to you to help you make the right choices about your graduate school application. And so please enter questions in the question box or the chat box. And after I go through some slides, Janet will be able to have those questions be asked. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm coming from my years of experience at UC Berkeley School of Public Health, 16 years of experience at the School of Public Health, and being involved in admissions committees and being involved in the overall admission process for the school, and also working with thousands of students across the country in Health Career Connection and helping them get connected to graduate school and through my HCN. Many students have benefited from our services and to help them get into the graduate programs and degree in school that they strive for. So that's what we're all about. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my webcam until questions, and we're going to just go through some slides. Next slide, please. So the first thing that is always important for you to do as you're completing your graduate school application is to make sure that you remind yourself why you're going to graduate school and why you're going to graduate school now. And also to make sure that you're able to convey that to the in your statements of purpose, through your letters of recommendation, through your overall application. The overall story that you tell should be of why you want to go to that specific school, degree, and program that you're applying to, and what you want to get out of it, and why now. And so it helps to know that some of the main things you get out of going to graduate school are specialized knowledge, skills, credentials, relationships, and opportunities that are hopefully aligned with your authentic life and health career direction. Graduate school, unlike undergrad, is more of a specialized time. It is still a time of exploration, but you want to get specialized knowledge, skills, credentials, relationships, and opportunities that come from it. So, but you want to be clear about what those are, so that you can make the right choice and you can prepare your application as strongly as possible. Hopefully you're going back to school to enhance your ability to be effective in whatever kind of health, public health, behavioral health role that you want to pursue. Hopefully this will be something that will be rewarding for you, both in terms of personal experience as well as your the ability to get a job afterwards, or go on to further education and be able to have the kind of accomplishments that you want. So first, make sure you're clear and that others can tell why you're going to graduate school. The next slide is one way to do that is to think about what do you want to do afterwards. And some people don't know, and that's okay. But it does help to have an idea, even if you don't end up doing that, but to have some idea about what you want to do afterwards, because this makes a difference too in writing your statements of purpose and having your letter writers talk to people about what you want to do afterwards. I just finished writing some letters for one of my former students and Health Career Connection alums who he was really clear. He wanted to be in health innovation. He wanted to be a chief health innovation officer within a health system and redesign the way that care is provided using technology and enhance efficiency and those things. So when I was asked questions, what do you think this person can do in the field as a letter writer? I said, I think he's well suited to be a chief innovation officer, and he wrote about that in his statements. And so being clear, and there's no right or wrong answer, it's what you really want to do about what you want do afterwards is important, and being able to convey that. It does help to convey it, but also to give some options so that some programs, hopefully you've done your homework to know whether the program that you're applying for is aligned with what you want to do. That will really enhance your chances of getting in. You don't want to be too narrow and just say, well, this is the only thing I want to do, because they might say, well, gosh, we have, you want to be hospital health administration, but we mainly have people who are interested in policy. Maybe we don't want somebody who's that specific. So you might want to be really clear on 1 to 3 directions, and then leave it open to say, but I'm also, interested in exploring other kinds of things that are related to that particular school degree and program that you're going for. And then you want to look at schools that are producing people in these directions that you want to go. It's a question you should ask before you apply is, where do people go when they finish your program? What kind of paths do they go into? What kind of jobs do they go into? And how does this program prepare them? You need to, if you ask those questions to folks, then when you write your application, you want to write your application to help say, well, this is what I want to do afterwards, and this is what I want to get out of the program, and this is why you should choose me. Next slide, please. So schools are looking for these different elements of an application. And I should say that primarily I'm going to be talking today about public health schools and what they're looking for, business schools, but other health profession schools are often looking for similar kinds of things. They just might have a different combination of those factors. And so statement of purpose is a really important part of your application. Hopefully, as you're allocating your time to different components of your application, hopefully you're spending a significant amount, if not the most time, on your statement of purpose and or personal statement, because those are really critical for you to make the case for why you want to be in that program, why they should select you. And they're looking at that to see how you differentiate yourself, how you tell your story, and how you compare to other, what differentiates you from other people who have good grade point averages and test scores and letters of recommendation. They are looking for experience more. So those of you who are applying with less paid work experience or substantial fellowship experience or Peace Corps experience or something, schools are looking for that more. So if you don't have a lot of experience, you need to really make the case strongly on your academic preparation and why it makes you a good fit for that program, and emphasize more about your GPA and your test scores and those kinds of things. And then have a letter of recommendation that does say that from somebody in the field still, hopefully, maybe somebody in your internship or somebody that you worked with on a volunteer basis or for a short time after school, that can make the case about why you're going to be successful in the field and what you bring in terms of your ability to be a leader and a practitioner. And then really schools are looking for fit. They're looking for you to articulate that you know something about that school and why you're a good fit with that school, degree, and program. And by the way, I mentioned those 3 things because you don't just apply to a school generally, or usually, although there are some programs like Columbia and others now that have more of a school-wide MPH that you're going for, many of them you're applying to the UC Berkeley School of Public Health, Health Policy and Management program for an MBA MPH degree, or an MPH degree, or an MPP MPH degree. And they're looking for different things depending on which degree and program that you're applying for, different levels of experience, different academic levels, those kinds of things. So you want to be clear about that and write your application and line up your application to meet what the school, degree, and program are looking for, not just the school. You're not just saying I'm applying to an MPH. You're applying to a specific program for a specific purpose. And some places that have a more general degree, you still might apply to say, I want certain certificates that like at Columbia, they have different certificates you can get in addition to sort of an area of concentration. Schools are also looking for people with diversity, and an important thing is schools are looking at applications more from a holistic review and looking at distance traveled and the journey that you've taken to get there. So if you are not, don't have the strongest GPA and test scores and experience, but you can talk about the experience that you've had and how you got there and what you've overcome and what you want to do and how that shaped who you are. And if you have other strong things in your application, they can look at holistically if you're a good fit or not. And usually most people don't have, almost no one has a perfect application. Everyone has some aspect of these things that isn't maybe where they would like to be. So the key for you is to put your best foot forward and tell a good story overall, and have the combination of these things really fit together to tell the story about why that school, why now, what it's going to do for you, and why they should pick you and why you're a good fit. The next slide, please. So one of the things that we wanted, the statement of purpose or their essay, some schools have individual essays for certain word limits now instead of statements. But you want to make sure on a strong essay that you are making it clear, concise, and compelling. Realizing that readers are reading many of these things over and over, usually in rapid succession, oftentimes at night and on the weekends when they're tired and busy. And so you want to make it clear, concise, easy for them to get to the main things that you want to say about yourself. And it shouldn't be a regurgitation of your CV or your resume. It should make it really clear, this is why you're applying to the program, this is what you're going to do afterwards, this is why they should pick you, and have the strengths that you want to bring out come through. Next slide, please. Some things to avoid in your statement of purpose or the essays, and these are obvious things at the top, but in the era of being able to do things online, cutting and pasting, doing things late at night when you're tired or when you're getting up towards the deadline, it's easy to make mistakes. And so you need to take a few extra minutes, take some time, review it, make sure you've got all these things right, do Grammarly and spell check and all that, and make sure you've got the right school in there. I can't tell you how many times I've seen great applications that said, hey, here at the UC Berkeley that say I'm applying to the Harvard School of Public Health. And so don't let those things happen to you. You want to make sure you got those basic things correct. Have somebody else read it to be sure as well. Overall, you want to don't focus too long on some of the aspects of your personal story. All of us have something that inspired us to get into the field, to get into to pursue it, like a story of a family illness or your own personal experience traveling or from the community that you grew up in, which are all really relevant. But make sure that you tell that story, but you also say why you're a good fit for that program, what you want to do after. And don't ignore the length guidelines now. That's people want short things that fit within the limits. So one thing to do is to make an outline of the points that you want to make sure come out in your statements. Make sure you write multiple drafts of it. Be open to constructive criticism. Get people to read it who know something about graduate school entry, not just your friend who may or may not know. And people who've been in graduate school, maybe somebody, your supervisor, a professor that you work with, people that do work. And there are some places like Berkeley School of Public Health, the grad service they have. Actually, there are people who are there that will read your statement of purpose and give you feedback on it. So write drafts, take the feedback, and ask people who know you well, does this reflect me? Does this do these key points come across? And ask again people in the industry, are you hitting on the right thing? So spend a lot of time on your statement, do a great job. Next slide, please. And then these are just some general tips that make sure you're talking about why this program, why that area of concentration, how it will support your career direction, how has your work experience shaped who you are, why now, and then be specific to the program you're applying to, not in general. One kind of formula that I encourage is to have start by talking about what your background is, how you got what you're doing now, how you got there, then why you want what you want to do going forward, why you want to go into graduate school, how this particular school degree and program will prepare you and why they should select you. And the whole thing should be kind of why you're a good fit and what you're passionate about, have your authentic voice come through to be able to have them see you as you are and what you really want to do, and make it concise and compelling. Next slide, please. So, and this is kind of a structure if you're doing an academic degree, more like a PhD or an MS of some kind, or an MA. That these are more, you can see this is a little bit more about what those degree programs might be looking for. More about talking, in this case, not only what you've done in terms of your undergraduate career, in terms of research and thesis and scholarly accomplishments, but your current activities, and then very importantly, what do you want to research? What do you want to study in graduate school? And being specific in this case, because oftentimes what's happening is that the faculty members there are looking at how you're fitting with their interests and their research opportunities and their funding, and how you might be able to work with them and how they might be able to work with you. So in this case, being specific, doing your homework is really important. Next slide, please. Now, sometimes when you are coming into the home stretch and writing your application, you might be saying, well, do I have some issues with my application? Do I have not enough experience? Do I have grades that aren't really where I'd like to be? Was there a semester? Was there a year where I was something happened, or I was a pre-med major and I took all these science courses and I got slammed and then chose to go into public health instead. And by the way, those are common things that happen to many, many people. So there's nothing, you don't need to hide what happened to you or be ashamed of what happened to you or anything like that. But if you have statements, things that affected your academic performance, your GPA, for example, we have some students, in my case, I had my grandmother passed away right before finals one year, or we have people who are homeless for some period of time, or who are experiencing an illness themselves, or an illness in their family, or things that happen. Life happens, and so if you can briefly address them, either in your statement of purpose or in some of the supplemental application areas, and then talk about how that affected you, and then what you've done since then to improve and advance, is really important, and show that you're trending up, that you're, and it's not to say that you're may not be struggling with some of the issues, but that maybe it affects your performance overall, or you're able to better manage it in order to be able to be now a successful graduate school student. Having a rationale for some choices that you might have made, and I'm a strong proponent of people getting paid experience post-undergraduate. I think that's essential. Some people call it gap years. I call it essentially getting essential experience and being a more competitive applicant and knowing more about what you want. But if you made choices to take a year off and travel, if you made choices to say, okay, I worked 1 year in research and 1 year in practice and 1 year in a bank, whatever you did to have it be part of your overall story, and just explain the choices. And it might be okay to say, I was burnt out at the end of undergraduate. I needed to take some time off to recharge the batteries and make sure that I knew what I wanted to do. But being sure that you tell the story, you explain your circumstances, and then put your best foot forward. That's what you can do, because again, the holistic review, people may be able to say, okay, I got that. If you got a bad grade in a quantitative class or in a writing class, and then you took another class to show, and you got good grades in that area, or you worked on projects, or you have letters of recommendation that say that you're strong in that area, then that's a great thing to be able to emphasize as well. So if it's okay to have these issues, just explain them and tell them as part of the story and show how you're trending up. Next slide, please. So another issue that some people run into is test scores, and how do they test scores that sometimes people have great test scores, and so in that case you want to leverage it if it's a strength. You want to put it forward, particularly like if you're a great quantitative person and you got excellent test scores and you're going for that biostats program. That's definitely a big thing to put forward because they really like that. Sometimes it'll help you get good merit-based awards, those kinds of things. So go with it. Many people, we all know the test scores don't measure our intelligence or our potential for success in graduate school or in the field. In fact, at UC Berkeley, the physics department, the top in the world, doesn't look at GRE scores any longer, but some schools do. And so you want to determine how much your target school degree and program takes test scores into consideration. You can either get that by talking to different people at the school or in your degree and program. And you can decide if you're applying to the right program with your schools, but don't not apply. Go with what you have. People still get accepted with lower scores depending on their overall strengths of their application and the case that they make. And then again, if you can demonstrate ways, if you got a low writing score, then show how you did a good job in writing through a letter of recommendation or through courses or in your work or something like that. If it's a low quantitative score, show that, hey, I took a math test, another math class, and I got good grades in math, either during or after my your education. If your score, do what you can to make the case for the test scores just being that sometimes people aren't good at taking tests or standardized tests, and that's okay. Or sometimes we just didn't do our best, that's okay. Give yourself, at this point, since it's last minute, you may not have time to take it again, but normally you want to give yourself time to take the test more than once if you're not applying, and time to take a review class if you're able to do that. And people do better. That could be online or in person. Next slide, please. Getting your letters written is really important. Strong letters of recommendation. If you look at the last MyHCN webinar that I did about 3 weeks ago, it's all about letters of recommendation and statement of purpose. So if you want more insights on those, you can go look at that webinar for more detail. But one of the things that happens at your last minute here is you're trying to get your letter writers to come through and write a strong letter for you. And so it helps for you to make it easy for them to submit the letter by providing all in one email, all the different, or a couple emails. Here's the different things that they need to do for you. Here's your resume, your cover letter, your draft statement, like all the things that you need to make it easy for them to do. Next slide. And if you're trying to, you want to get letters from academic writers as well as from professional writers. The degree, school, and program you are applying to may have different requirements. Some may require 2 academic letters. Some only require 1. You should look at the degree, school, and program and figure out what they're looking for and get the best people to write those letters for you. If you don't have strong relationships with faculty members, then you could be a TA or a staff member, but try to get it co-signed with a faculty member, which gives it more strength. Be sure to ask, can they write you a strong letter of recommendation, and give them an out if they can't. That's okay. You want the best letter from a person who knows you well. Even if it's a famous person and they can't say a lot about you, it's not going to be as strong. So try to get somebody who can. The first question is, how long have you known the person and in what capacity, and how do you rate them versus other applicants and things. So you need somebody who's going to write a strong letter for you in that regard. Next slide, please. To help them at the end, and I have a colleague who writes over 60 letters of recommendations for students. So we realize that your letter writers might be writing for more than you, and they may have a lot on their plate. And so make sure that you gently remind them, not harass them. Sometimes you might give them a little earlier due date than the actual, so that they don't wait till the last minute and given all the other things that they have going on. You want to ask them what's the best way to remind you and communicate with you about things. One thing that this student did for me the last stretch of time, it was kind of a combination of a reminder as well as a kind of a check-in, was to write an email a couple days before the letter was due, 2-3 days. So he actually gave me calendar invites about when the letters were due. And then he would write me an email saying, hey, Jeff, how's it going? Just checking to make sure you have everything for your application. Your letter for Columbia that you're writing for me, let me know. And so those kind of things were helpful. And then even the day of, he'd write me a letter saying, hey, if you have any questions, I'm here. You know, here's how to reach me. So it's just gently reminding people to that it's time to do it, and make it easy for them to write. That's a big important thing, and just keep on their radar screen. If you're a person who's really nervous about it and you're asking a really busy person to write it, you might find out if letters, as long as you get your application in on time, is it okay if letters are late? Because that might be a chance for you to have less stress if you get all your things on and they say, yeah, we'll take the letter for another week afterwards. Hopefully that won't be the case, but maybe for you to know that, not to share it with the person who's writing the letter, but for you to know that so that you might have a little more ease in your mind about that. Next slide, please. My HCN, my Health Career Navigator, we do have some statement of purpose review services if you're interested. And it depends on the level of need that you have. If you want something that's just quick review of your essay and some feedback, that's one thing, versus you want some editing on it, versus you want a whole conversation about what you're trying to do and how you're trying to get there and how we can best support you. So that's something available. You can email Janet and email info@myhcn if you want more information about that. Next slide, please. So I went through this relatively quickly because I wanted to leave time for your questions, because this is meant to be a resource for you as you come into the home stretch for your applications, or if you're doing a great job of planning ahead for your next round of your next year application, which is always good to be starting ahead. Then I'm just wondering if there are any questions that people have about their application and how we can be helpful to you.
Yes. Hi, guys. So someone asked, what is my email? I will send my email in the follow-up email that you guys will get with the recording of this webinar. So I will be including that. So thank you, Elena Hernandez, for that question.
Okay. Other questions?
Other questions? Okay. So Jeff, I know the deadline is coming up in December and some schools in January. So do you have any tip in terms of what mindset applicants should try to tap into as?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that actually. I think that it's really useful to have the mindset that you're well prepared, even if you're not as prepared as you'd like to be, but that you are well prepared and that you're going to put the work in that's needed and that you're going to be successful. I think it starts with having a mindset but I start out by saying, well, be clear about what you want to do and what you want to get out of the program, because that's kind of your North Star to help you say, yeah, this is why I'm doing this. And then if you really get in deep inside, rather than, well, I'm kind of doing this because I don't have any other options, but regardless of why you're doing it, but if you have a North Star and then you approach it, there's a Henry Thoreau quote that says, go confident in the direction of your dreams, and you'll live the life that you imagined, is that you can go ahead and say, all right, I'm going to make this work. Whether I have the grades or test scores or whatever it is, because you don't know what the admissions committee is going to look at. All you can control is putting your best total application package forward. So your goal, your mindset is, I'm going to make it work. And if I don't get in for some reason, I'm going to give it 110%. If I don't get in this time, either I'll get into the school that is the right one for me, or it's not the right time for me, or I'll get it the next time. But I think going with the approach of, instead of from a place of fear, or what if I don't get in? What if they don't like me? What if my test score or my GPA is not good enough? Kind of go, I'm going to get this done. Lay out a schedule for yourself over the week. If you're busy with school or busy with work or something, sometimes it's hard to fit it in. But if you can say, okay, I've got X number of days until the deadline, whether it's December 1st or 15th or January 1st or whenever it is, what am I going to do along the way each week to make sure I get there, and who else do I need to involve? To give those people a heads up now, the letter writers, the they're your people who are going to review your statement of purpose, whoever it is, let them know, hey, set aside some time. I'm going to be coming to you to ask for your help or to get your review along the way. And then I think making sure that you take care of yourself along the way is good. It can be a lot of work to write all these applications on top, particularly if you're doing it on top of other things. So making time to exercise, to sleep, to meditate, things that might be helpful to you, and to eat well, that's helpful in this process too, because then you're coming to this from a place of health and energy, and you're giving your best effort. Trying not to do it at the last minute, because even though I'm a procrastinator, so I know how it feels, I'm deadline motivated, but sometimes you just can't do, even though it might feel like it's finally all coming out, then sometimes you can't do your best work at the last minute, or you'll make careless mistakes by rushing or something. So if you can, give yourself enough time to do it over, to do it from a well-prepared, I'm going to be successful mindset. If you don't have time, it doesn't mean that you can't be successful. So if you're running out of time, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and get this done the best I can, then it's like, okay, still believe that you're going to be successful and set yourself up for success.
Okay. So, Rada Aldosari asks, hi, I'm having trouble answering the question, why are you applying to graduate school now? Any advice?
Well, I think that's a great question. I would say on one level, if you can't answer that question, it could mean that you might want to spend more time either A, thinking about that seriously, but before you start doing the rest of your application, you might want to step back and say, all right, I'm going to spend this weekend, or I'm going to spend a day, or I'm going to give myself a week, or whatever it is, trying to answer that question for yourself. It could involve talking to other people. If you're an external processor or you like getting input from other people, it could involve talking to them. It could involve some journaling. It could involve some reflection. And if you really can't answer that question, it might be a sign that maybe it's not the right time to go back to school yet. Maybe it's time to get some more experience, more exposure to get to the point where you can answer that question. Because I think it's important to be able to answer that question, to know that you're applying to the right school, degree, and program, and also to write a strong statement of purpose, to get strong letters of recommendation, and those kinds of things. There are some basic reasons to go to school, like to be able to advance towards your career goal, to get those knowledge, skills, relationships, opportunities that will be helpful to you to go to the next level. To maybe some people it's changing courses that all right, I'm right, I have been in more of a research person or a clinical person, but now I've decided I want to go into policy or business, so I'm going to get a degree in that area. So I guess just really think through what the right reasons are. But if you can't answer it, ask yourself, is now the right time to go, or do I need more time to figure out that answer? Because you'll usually know when the time comes to make the case. One other suggestion would be write down different reasons why, or try writing a statement of purpose to say, well, all right, if I'm writing a statement of purpose for this particular program, why am I saying I want to go to that program, and see what flows out.
All right, thanks for your question. Tashana Badu asks, how do we navigate preparing the application if we are occupied with studying for the GRE?
How do we navigate preparing the application if we're already trying to study for the GRE?
Yes.
I think it's a time management question. And how can you manage your time in a way that, and some of it comes down to prioritization and being able to say, well, how much, what are the strengths of my application and the areas I need to strengthen? And then if I were to prioritize it for the school, degree, and program I'm applying for, where do they put the most weight? And therefore, where should I allocate my time? And I think it's good. You need to do well on the GRE, and that's That's important. But you have to weigh that with, well, am I also going to be able to write a good statement of purpose? Am I going to be able to, get the letters of recommendation done? Those kinds of things. So I think it's an issue of either plotting out enough time, clearing your schedule if you can to be able to do both, or prioritizing within the time that you have. Maybe it's sequencing. Maybe you batch. You like spend the weekend. You say, okay, I'm not going to study for the GRE this weekend because I'm going to spend my whole weekend trying to write my statement of purpose, and then I'll return to the GRE, but I'm going to spend some dedicated time, because sometimes on some of these application pieces, it helps to have a dedicated amount of time where you can have writer's block, or you can write crummy first drafts or something and then start over. And so I would just think about how you work your best, and try to organize your time to be able to do that.
Thanks, Ashana, for your question. Lucia Merle asks, do you suggest reaching out to faculty in the MPH program? Would it help my admission?
Good question. I always suggest that in addition to your preparing your application, you want to build relationships with people at the school, because in the end, it's admissions committees of people, students and faculty and staff who are reviewing applications and making application decisions. And it helps if they know the name with the face or the name with the application at the time they're reviewing it. And so I encourage you to reach out to faculty as part of your due diligence about looking at schools and exploring if it's a good fit for you, and reach out to the program directors of the different degrees, school and program that you're going for. Not just admission staff can be really helpful, and outreach staff can be really helpful, but trying to connect with faculty, I think, is important. Some might be busy and not have the time. Others will make the time. It doesn't reflect on the school if somebody doesn't get back to you. I think it's a really good idea to reach out and just say, hey, I'm very interested in your school or your program. I'm hoping, I'm going to be applying. I wondered if I might set aside, have an informational interview with you to get some information that would be helpful for me in understanding more about your school and helping me prepare my application. Also, going to pre-application advising sessions or prospective student days or things like that is also good, because you can meet faculty, you can meet students, you can meet alumni, community partners, and you want multiple perspectives on the school, and you want to build relationships. So when you're there, don't just sit there and listen to the presentation. Go introduce yourself to the head of admissions. Go introduce yourself to the faculty speaker. Go introduce yourself to the students on the panel, and ask if you can follow up with them to give you some insights about the program. And make sure you use your first and last name, because when you apply, you're going to be using your first and last name. And if you say, hey, my name is Jeff, and then you apply, they're not going to know which Jeff you are when your name is in the application. So yes, I think reaching out and even visiting schools is a really good way to go. If you can visit, and particularly right before the application is due to learn some more information, right after you submit it and before admissions decisions are made, those are generally good times to be able to do that. So anyway, I maybe have time for one more question.
I think that was the last question, Jeff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for participating tonight. Hopefully this was helpful to you in your graduate school preparation. If you're heading into the home stretch, and hopefully some of these tips will be helpful to you, I'd be happy to answer other questions or have you do the statement of review services that we have. If you're going to apply in the future, that's great too. Now you have some more information to help you organize your preparation so that you can really put forward the strongest application that's going to get you to the school that you want to go to, the degree you want to go to, and help you make the difference in health. And we need you to be able to do that. And we believe that you can do that. So please go for it. Stay tuned. We'll have some more MyHCN webinars and blogs and other resources about graduate school preparation, as well as career planning and development. And those of you who are undergrads that are interested in internship, don't forget about the Health Career Connection, healthcareers.org, paid summer internships. The applications for 2019 summer are now available. We have internships all throughout the country in 10 regions: California, New York, Boston, DC, North Carolina, Nashville, maybe a couple in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh this year, so in Connecticut. So do apply. It's a great way to strengthen your graduate school preparation because you have a strong internship. We have graduate school partners of top schools of public health and medical schools that you get introduced to, and you learn. We have a whole workshop on preparing for graduate school. So with that, thanks for participating, and we'll look forward to having you participate in MyHCN again in the future. Thanks very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.